We are back with more My Southern Home, and I'm here with Jeff Ratanapool with Stockton Mortgage. And Jeff, I'm so happy to be with you today. And one of the things that I love talking to you about is investing in real estate.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here always.
So let's talk a little bit about Airbnbs because they're so popular right now. And, in this environment, Airbnbs, that type of investment is a good way to go.
I believe so. And there's really two ways to finance it in our world. A, if you're going to live in it, right? And that'll just be an owner-occupied property. You would treat it just like it's your own, and then you're free to rent out rooms or whenever that you want to. We don't really look at it as an income-producing property. In that case, you only have to put 5% down, and ultimately you finance it like you would, and you handle your business that way. Now, if you already own a home that you live in and you're going to purchase one as a rental property, then we only require a 20% down payment. And I've looked around at some other markets, and there's some really creative ways that people are financing Airbnbs. Some places that want a bigger down payment or maybe have different rates. But for as little as 20% down, you can own that as your investment property that you use 100% of the time as Airbnb.
Well, one of the things that I like so much, Jeff, about you and your company is that you work with commercial properties all the time, and you have realtors that specialize in this that come to you because of your knowledge of investment properties.
Yeah, and by definition, so the secondary market considers up to 4 units residential. So we only specialize in that residential lending space. If you're going to do a true commercially zoned property, you'd have to go through a local bank. But yes, we have much experience at Stockton Mortgage in putting people in investment properties. And so it can be 1 to 4 units, and we have an outlet to get those financed. The only limit that we have is the number of them that you can have. So right now in the secondary market, our investors limit us to 1, your primary residence, plus 10 other properties financed, and that's the total that you can get. But that's plenty for someone who's just getting started or wanting to get in the game.
Wow, I had no idea that there was a limit on what you could have.
It used to be unlimited, but there's a thing called rapid acquisition, and I think what the market wants people to do is not to get in over their head and go out and buy 30 properties at once. So we look at that case, and it's been able to meet the need of most of the customers that we see and we have.
And it's interesting because we had talked about creative financing when it comes to buying a residential property that you're going to live in and make your primary residence. But it's kind of cool that there's creative lending when it comes to the Airbnbs as well, especially with the rates being what they are.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, an income producing property, if you look through the history of time, people who had the most wealth invested in land or real estate, and so there's an option to do that.
And when it comes to investing in real estate, sometimes, or getting a second home, you hear sometimes that people get equity out of their home to purchase something else. Is that something that you can help homeowners with?
We sure can. So we have some outlets that can either let them tap into the equity through a home equity line of credit if they live there, or even do a cash out refinance where they can borrow more than they owe and use those funds to buy another property. Yeah, that's available too.
So Jeff, what are some other pointers that investors need to know when they're considering an income producing property?
That's a great question. So number one is that you might not have the income to qualify, but that's still okay. And there's certain cases where we will use an existing lease on the property or the rental market comparison, and we'll give the borrower credit for that rent that they can expect on that property to help offset the payment. So I think the key here is get with a loan officer who's knowledgeable about rental properties, income producing. Let them take a look at your case and help you structure the deal first. Because I feel like a lot of deals that go bad is the financing wasn't figured out ahead of time. People just went out and bought and said, okay, tell me how to put it together. But in a case like this, I think you really need to be deliberate in who you're talking to, understanding your payments, and then how that rent will affect it. Most lenders will require that you have 6 months of that rent in an account somewhere as a reserve. And what we're looking to do is making sure someone doesn't get in and then for some reason it doesn't get rented or the renter leaves and they're not able to pay the payment. So those are little nuances that really you should have ironed out before you get out there with the letter in hand and putting an offer in. But it's really simple stuff. I don't want to scare anybody away, but it's good to know that before you get out there and buy.
Well, and there's lots of different options when it comes to investing in real estate. And one of the reasons why I feel like an Airbnb or an apartment complex is the best option right now is because of the rates and the supply chain issues and stuff like that. Don't you think it's better to just buy and hold right now?
Yes, but it's not really one size fits all. It's really up to that individual, and for the lender to understand what the individual's taste, desires, and their long-term goals are. That is the most important. But you're right. For 60 or 70, 80% of the people, holding right now is the thing to do and let it produce income. But you may live in a market where the common thing is to flip. And in that case you're going to buy, invest money in, and sell for higher. And that's still effective, but I think you have to understand the market that you're in. Not all places support that type of activity. So if you're in a market that is all about rents received, then yes, you should buy and hold, let someone else pay your equity off, and then let that be an income producing property and build wealth for yourself.
Jeff, closing thoughts. What is it that you feel is the most important thing for investors to consider?
I think it's to take your time, be patient. It's a long game. Getting in for the first time and trying to buy 10 or 11 properties at once is probably not a good formula, especially if you're not experienced, because you're probably going to come up against repairs, learning how to be a landlord for the first time, doing your taxes. I think taking the first one, learning from your mistakes, and then drawing out a plan. Maybe you want to have one property every 3 months. Maybe you want to buy one a month. But understanding what you're into in the very beginning, I think that is it. Having a plan is the key.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kimberly.
We'll be back with more of My Southern Home in just a moment.